G'day everyone and welcome back to Rule of Reason. The Australian federal election has been called and I wanted to take the time to talk through a few things that I think are really important in the lead up to this election and on election day as well. I'm going to spend a number of episodes over the coming weeks breaking down all of the major topics that you're going to be hearing about on the news and likely in your social media feeds. And I want to break them down as unbiased as possible, but into plain English in ways that are easy to understand. So you don't have to be an expert to understand what everyone is talking about, whether that be the leader of the current government, or Peter Dutton, the leader of the Liberal Party, or Adam Bandt, the leader of the Greens. And they're probably the three main parties that I will focus on, purely just because they're the three biggest parties in Australia, political parties. But I wanted to start with something that's not political at all, and it's what I think is the most important thing for everyone to remember. Irrespective of whether if you like the what you call it, a metaphor or the playing field of the left and right side of politics, I don't particularly like that. The problem I find with left and right is it's ridiculous. It's to say that people, that individuals, are so one-dimensional that they could fit into just the left or just the right side of one spectrum is to reduce humans to a far too simplistic value, and I hate it. Me personally, there are things on the right, things on the left that I agree with, but I guess when it comes to voting in an election, you need to vote with the party that you believe most accurately aligns with what you believe and how you would like to see the world. But the non-political thing I want to address is a really, really simple idea. And the really, really simple idea is that whether you're left or right side of politics, everyone who's voting is Australian. We are all citizens of the same great country. And I thought that where I'm walking now would be a great place to talk about how great Australia is, because I think down here on Darling Harbour in Sydney is going to be one of the most beautiful places in Australia. And it's just a sign of our great country and the great things that we can achieve. And here underneath all of these brand new buildings that speak to our history. And sure, we have a colourful past, but find me a country that doesn't. You're going to hear lots of complaining about our history and that some people think something's bad or something's good. I choose to focus on what's good about our country, focus on the things that unite us rather than spending the time to focus on what divides us. One topic that's going to be really popular during this election is immigration. And I'm not going to break down immigration policy right now, but what I am going to talk about is, have you ever stopped to think, why are hundreds of thousands of people uprooting their lives in their country and moving to Australia for work? Why would people do that? It could only be because they see what we have here and the opportunities for work that we have here are far better than what they have where they currently live. So already that in itself should say to you, gee, I'm pretty lucky to live here if that many people are willing to move halfway across the world to have what I already have. And now again, I understand that there are people that are doing it hard, and at the moment there are lots of people doing it hard. And to make it worse, and I've got a lot of friends that feel this way, is they feel like they don't really have a good choice of any of the political parties. And it's easy to be apathetic and to feel hopeless and feel like, what's the point of voting? I've got friends that have said, I'm not even going to vote. I'd rather take the fine than vote. And I understand. I mean, when the government comes out and in order to win votes, their pre-election promise is that, hey, we're going to make a tax cut to help you ease the burden of cost of living crisis by reducing your tax by $5 a week in 18 months' time. If that doesn't scream ridiculous, then I don't know what does. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the opposition gets away scot-free either, because their counter is, oh no, we're not going to do that, because we understand people have got cost of living pressures now. So instead, they're going to reduce the fuel excise for the next 12 months, which is only going to save you $3 a week. But it's saving you $3 a week now instead of $5 a week in 18 months' time. So they win brownie points for at least having something that saves you money now. But I mean, come on, what's $3 a week going to do for someone who can't afford a full meal for their family? But what I urge you, and I don't want this to be a podcast episode of just despair, what I urge you to do is focus on what is good rather than what feels hopeless, because you're going to get lots of messages about the opposition party does this, or the government does that, or the Greens do this, or they don't do that, and try to look past it, try and ignore the petty infighting that you see from politicians, and try and remember what we as Australians are so blessed to have. We have a wonderful country. We are safe. We have safety. We have affluence relative to the rest of the world. And sure, maybe politics can sometimes seem hopeless and who cares who you vote for, but it does matter. Who you vote for matters. And I'm going to touch on the structure of Australian politics, federal, state and council, in an upcoming episode, and describe what each one does and why it's important to know what they do, and how and why it's important to contact your member about issues that you're passionate about to keep them accountable. I'm going to do another episode on why we have compulsory and preferential voting in Australia and why it's important to know how to do it properly. And I'm going to quickly touch on that actually, because preferential voting matters. If you have a party that you like, and so you just go, yep, sweet, one in that box, who cares, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in all the other ones, don't do that. Because you don't realize that what you could be doing is throwing your vote to a party that you don't want to vote for. So please take the time, and I'm not saying take the how to vote card from your party of choice and necessarily vote exactly how they tell you to, unless you genuinely just don't know what the other parties stand for and therefore don't feel like you can make an informed decision. But really think about how you do your preferences, because if your candidate doesn't get in, where your vote goes after that could elect someone that you don't want. So we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I just wanted to take this time to highlight one really important thing, and that's to be kind. Politics can be really divisive, and if you are at all interested in American politics, as I tend to be from time to time, you will see that over the last decade or two, the division in America between Republican and Democrats has gone from they don't like each other to they hate each other. But because most of their elections are a 50-50 split, or very close, effectively what you're saying is, I hate 50% of my countrymen. And that's tragic to me. It's tragic to think that's the case, just because someone voted for a different political party. So please, I beg you, if you have friends or family or colleagues and they think differently to you, or they want to vote for a different political party, don't chastise them because of their belief. Sure, question them, ask them why. Hey, did you know that that party stands for this? Or they said they were going to do this and they didn't. And have one of the things I'm most passionate about, which is respectful discourse, where you can have a conversation with someone who doesn't believe the same things as you. And at the end of the conversation, if neither person changes their position, that's fine. It doesn't matter. You have respected each other, view the world slightly differently. But all that is evidence of what I pointed out at the start, is that humans are complex, but beautifully complex. And we're not simple beings that just vote left or right. That we all view the world slightly differently, and that's okay. And all we can do in a political world is try and make the best of the world that we live in, knowing that there's no one way that's going to work for everyone. So understand that. So I really hope that in Australia we don't go down the path of America. I really hope that we can have respectful discourse and that people from opposite sides of the spectrum can have intellectual conversations, query each other. Maybe you learn something, maybe the other person learns something. Maybe you realize, oh, I didn't know that. I might change the way that I previously voted now that I know that. But let's just try and make this coming election not an election of division. Let's not focus on the things that make us different. Let's focus on the things that make us the same. And I think everyone will find, if you dig a little deeper, that whether you're Greens or you're Labor or you're Liberal, that all of the positions that you hold are all rooted in having a good heart and compassion for people. You want to see the country be the best that it can be. We all just have different roads on how we think we're going to get there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that one's right and one's wrong. And sure, there are going to be some that are wrong and there are going to be some that are right, because in some instances there is only one way or only a couple of ways to do it. Let's be kind. This is a really, really important election. And you'll hear lots of people say that too. This is an era-defining moment in Australian politics in the way that we shape our country. And I say that. You'll hear politicians say that. They're already saying it. The Greens are definitely saying that. But I say that because I look at America and I look at the UK and it's really sad about the state that their countries are in. And they have a lot of work to claw back to being the great nations that they once were. But we as Australia are fortunate that we are about 20 years behind, typically, and that's anecdotally, behind where they are. So we have this beautiful roadmap paved out in front of us of what happens if we continue down this path that we're on. And we haven't gone so far as we can't turn back. We can turn this around, and I think we will turn around. I am very optimistic for the future of Australia, as long as the right people can do the right things. And that all starts with us, the people, because we elect the leaders in this country, but we also, once they're elected, hold them accountable. Politics is a participation sport, so whether your party gets in this election or not, make sure that your member, whether they're the one that you voted for or not, that you get more involved after this election in sending emails, making phone calls, and having your voice be heard so that they can more accurately represent you. I've waffled a little bit in this and I apologize for that, but I wanted to do this video timely because the election was only announced a couple of days ago, but it's an important one. And I have faith. I have faith that it's going to be good. I love this country. I genuinely think it's the greatest country on earth, and I think it can be even better, but only if we all respect one another and we can re-find that national identity we have. I grew up in the 90s and national pride was so strong, and now I feel like people are just encouraged to hate our history and hate our country, and it needs to change. It needs to go back to the way that it was. I love this country and I will stand up for this country, and I hope you will too. So on May 3rd, have your say, vote in an informed way so that you're confident the person that you're voting for and potentially electing is the person who can do the most good for you in this country. And if the person that you want to get elected doesn't get elected, just know that the world will not end if that's the case. Don't hate people if the person they voted for did, if yours didn't. All I ask is that you take stock of what's happened and you go, okay, play the participation sport of politics, and I'm going to keep this MP accountable for all the things that I think are important. Yeah. I think that's all I want to say today. In future episodes, I'm going to talk about, as I said, whether it be education, health, defense, definitely energy policy, because that's going to be a big one in this election, and try and break it all down for you in ways that's easy for you to understand, but be informed, so when May 3rd comes around, you feel like you're able to vote in an effective way. Thanks for listening, everyone, and I'm getting excited. I'm excited to talk through all these things with you. See you next time.